Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to talk about one of the biggest themes and plot points of the comic and graphic novel called Habibi by Craig Thompson. But before I start, let me warn you that the topic that is going to be discussed in this video is going to be very heavy and graphic, and it will contain spoilers. You've been warned. So the topics that I'm going to be discussing today are abuse and trauma, and how these tragic events impacted the main characters of the story. The reason why I'm talking about this is because I find it intriguing. Such topics are very taboo in the comic book medium, and very few writers and artists dare to touch upon these subjects, and those who do are very often criticized for it. So let's see how this story handles such topics. So let's start with Dodola. She is the first person we meet in the story and one of the two main characters. Ever since she was a little girl, she was abused by grown men. Starting with her first husband, a scribe who took her virginity when she was 9 years old, and then at 12 by various caravan traders who took advantage of her lack of resources, and this was constant for her for 9 straight years. She was later sold into the Sultan's harem, who pretty much also treated her as his personal toy. All these events caused her to dissociate herself from reality, and to treat her body as separate from herself, since she found no connection to it, because she only saw her body as an avenue to her survival and for the lust of men to indulge. She later then has a son with the Sultan, which she has a very hard time relating to, since she could only see the face of the Sultan on the child, which also reminded her of the things she lost, making her to farther sink into delusion and to use drugs to spend her days. Now let's talk about Zam. Zam was the unwanted child of a slave, and therefore he was also a slave. Ever since he was 3 years old, he was living with Dodola in the desert, and since Dodola was the only woman he had around, when the age came of him feeling sexual desire, he couldn't help it but to have feelings for Dodola, although he was always ashamed of it. When he was 12 years old, he witnessed the most tragic event in his life, and that was the sexual assault of Dodola by a caravan trader. That event shattered him completely. From that day on, he was ashamed of his manhood, ashamed of his sexual desire, and mentally and emotionally scarred, having constant nightmares of him becoming an evil monster like the man who did that to Dodola. And side note, what makes this even sadder is that from Dodola's perspective, she was very little affected by it, since she was already used to that level of abuse. Now back to Zam. As a teenager, he is then groomed by a group of transgender religious cultists into becoming a eunuch, and thanks to his trauma, he decides to take the procedure in order to find purity and peace of mind. Since he is always fearful of sexual desire, this led him to drastically change his body forever. So Dodola suffered from depression and dissociation thanks to all the abuse she was submitted to since she was a little girl, and then later by birthing the son of one of her abusers. And Zam suffers from sexual repression and trauma from witnessing the abuse that was done upon Dodola, and then from him cutting off his genitals in response to it. In the end, when the two of them were finally able to reunite and escape to the city, their past trauma wasn't completely gone, but at least they were able to find comfort and solace in each other and in their religion. And from this realization, they then decided to adopt a slave girl who was being sold, so that she doesn't fall into the same fate as them and give her the childhood that was robbed from them. And that's how the story ends. Okay, so what do you guys think about this? How do you guys think the story handled SA and childhood trauma? In my opinion, what I get from all of this, like I said in my previous video on this comic, in essence this story is about perseverance. The pain that these characters receive both physically and emotionally is a scar that they will have for life, but they were able to come to peace with it by being honest with themselves and each other. Since life is an eternal struggle of pain, empathy is their best defense against it. So this was the video. Let me know what you guys think, and until next time,